Welcome, friends, to Congruent Health, where we speak on body, soul, and spirit topics, particularly for those who are in a non-diet recovery journey, as well as trying to build a relationship with Christ. And so, in this episode, we are going to be speaking on the body. And for those of you who are newer to some of these episodes, every episode is different. And I'm really led each episode as to what it's going to be about. So I don't have a lot of notes when I do these episodes. I really just do these podcasts based on topics, honestly, that the Lord brings to mind, and I just go with it. All right. So something that got brought up today was about weight, and I know that in recovery we are working with the Lord and how much we are walking in the Spirit with Him when it comes to healing from health issues, disordered eating kind of topics and things like that. We are talking about our soul, which is our mind, our will, and our emotions. And then we are also going to be talking about the body. And so some episodes are going to be health topics really specifically. So today is going to be a body topic. And probably one of the most, I shouldn't say controversial. It's one that every person who has a body who has been impacted by diet culture has to face and dismantle anything that isn't of God. And it's a topic of fear of weight gain. I would say it's probably the biggest reasons why most people stay in pseudo recovery and not full recovery is because the deeper reasons for the desire to control weight are never truly dealt with. Those soul wounds aren't dealt with usually, and people don't achieve full recovery. However, I mean that's more of a soul and body kind of combination. I'm going to speak today about like why people gain weight, why people might need to gain weight in early recovery. And so to just define recovery again real quick is for the purposes I use is the goal here is to learn how to be at peace with food and body and even health, that we can pursue health behaviors for the sake of having and being in a body that we can best be in service to Lord in. And that doesn't mean a thinner body, it just means a body that, I mean, you're able to function. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing that. Now, I would say for all my listeners here who are in bodies that are disabled right now, that doesn't mean you're not serving the Lord. It just means if you do happen to be able-bodied, that it does feel better when things don't hurt as much, right? But our culture teaches us to do one thing with a body that's in pain. Diet culture teaches one thing, and the recovery process would teach another. Okay, so again, recovery is going to be about peace with food and body, having a relationship with food and movement, and how you pursue health goals that's in alignment with how God made our bodies and our souls. And it's about doing no harm, and it's about um, crucifying the idolatry that's within diet culture in us. Okay, so it's a lot. It's a big topic, right? I just want to speak to weight gain though. Let's just get right into it. Is that most people, I'm just going to speak from my experiences as a human being who went through eating disorder recovery and is fully recovered herself, and to the 20 plus years of experience I have in serving people who have eating disorders of all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds, health conditions intertwined with disordered eating, is the majority of people do gain weight. Not every single person, um, but most people. And the reasons for that are varied, which is why it's so important when we start this journey that we're educating ourselves as much as possible about how the body works. And that's going to help you with some expectancies so you're not sort of thrown off. You don't find yourself 6 months or a year into the process being surprised. It's really important that you seek out, like, how does the body work? If you're going to be doing a self-health kind of journey, you need to understand the physiology of the body and start like how uh, deprivation impacts the body and the soul, how just eating less than what you need, how that impacts how your body functions. Okay, so the most obvious reason that people gain weight back in recovery is that they've lost an amount of weight that is below what they were designed to be. God makes bodies different on purpose for his purposes, not based on what we would prefer given the culture we're born into, but everything about us is specific for his best for us, essentially. Okay. But when we have wounding and trauma and neglect and bullying and all the things that so many of us have experienced when we were younger, we in our immature minds think that, oh, if I just had a different body, a better body, then those bad things wouldn't have happened to me. That's how children think. There's something called in the science world called egosyntonic, which just means um, very me focused. That's how children are, and that's to kind of be expected that they have to grow into mature to being more other focused. And how does what I do impact others? But children aren't really like that. So if you treat them poorly, they think that's something fundamentally mentally flawed about them. So if somebody bullies you because of your body size, or maybe your sibling is told how like cute they are, and you get no comments at all or affirmation at all. And in fact, you get zero affirmation, or you get criticized for your body, then you're gonna think, oh, it's the body's fault that I didn't get that adoration or affirmation or love or whatever. Um, and so that will tie into you naturally had a different body shape or size that wasn't affirmed. And you might end up spending the rest of your life until you decide that, like, maybe enough is enough of this, that it's not this, the way I'm viewing my food and body isn't producing fruit, that you decide, like, oh, I'm tired of trying to get a smaller body to get love, essentially, or to prevent myself from harm. And maybe you've been weight suppressing. When I say weight suppression, that means that you're pushing your weight with restrictive behaviors and exercise or pharmaceuticals or whatever it is you're doing to get to a lower weight. And um, you're just practically, for all practical purposes, just underweight, whether you're in double digits or um, you're at a weight that the world would say is culturally acceptable, but you have to do all these behaviors to get there, or you're a larger body. And to be that current size you are, you still have to do behaviors that are disordered, but your body still really isn't in the culturally acceptable range kind of thinking, but you're still weight suppressing. So when you stop restricting, and you may not be overeating whatsoever, but your body wants to gain weight because your body wants to be where God designed it to be. Okay. Now, what complicates that in recovery is that we may not be fully on board with that concept that there's a natural range that's right for me that doesn't have to be manipulated. But we might know that our mind is true, but our other parts of our mind aren't on board with that. And so we do a lot of I'll restrict less, and it ends up being deprivation driven eating. So we are overshooting sometimes in our ability to stop it at fullness because one, we just don't have good interoceptive awareness if we've been chronically restricting and then sometimes binging or whatever it is we're doing. So our interoceptive awareness can be off. And then something we spend a lot of time in sessions with our clients is looking over food and to the best of our ability, it's not a perfect way, perfect science, but the best of our ability, matching up um, what's to be expected from the amount of fuel you're eating to be expected you to a certain amount of time, coupled with certain body sensations and attitudes around eating and appetite that help us tell like if you're eating accurately from hunger and fullness. But that's a skill set that has to be built. And typically that's built in childhood. But if you started dieting at a certain age, and maybe it's been decades since you've done it, you don't have the skill or practice of that anymore. That has to be rebuilt. So one of the reasons people gain weight, one is that they just need to. They're weight suppressing, and when they eat normally, um, their their body wants to get back into a range that's more appropriate for them. Two, it's hard to know sometimes if you're eating enough or not, or triggering your body into deprivation and to deprivation-driven eating if you've been out of practice with your hunger fullness signals for a really long time. So sometimes we overshoot that a little bit, and that sometimes can cause a little bit of residual weight gain that may or may not have happened if your signals had been more accurate, but that's not your fault. That's just part of the learning process. A third reason people gain weight is there's kind of a combination of like maybe some dieting still kind of going on, some normal eating going on, some emotional eating going on. So, because sometimes, people come in and we're complex, right? So we might have a mix of like emotionally under eating and emotionally overeating. Some of the eating that looks like emotional eating may not be emotional eating, maybe like deprivation driven eating. Okay. So if you're not eating enough throughout the day, that's going to be both an emotional and physical process, which can lead to like you're really, really, really full or even feeling stuffed at night. And I could look at your energy and take it's like, oh, this looks pretty appropriate, but it doesn't feel very good. Um, or it could be lead again to a little subtle overeating. And if that's done long term over time, that could lead to some weight gain that's maybe a little over what you would have if, again, the signal's been more accurate. Okay. Another thing to keep in consideration is that when we calorie restrict for dieting, it doesn't even matter what your weight is. Um, you're going to reduce your metabolism because your body has to survive. The priority is going to be fuel to your vital organs to survive. So it's going to reduce um, energy for other activities, including maybe higher um, more nuanced, complex living. All of us who've been food restrictive know that a lot of our life revolves around the food and the movement and what you're going to eat and not going to eat. So your life gets kind of small. We got to preserve some energy. So you can't really have a fuller life. Um, so once you stop restricting, the metabolism has to catch up. And some people gain weight faster than others in that process. It just depends. But again, if we are going back to more normalized eating from hunger and fullness over time, I see things kind of even out for some people and definitely metabolically. Every quarter you should be noticing like hopefully better body temperature regulation and better digestion and um, more energy, more ability to think, and that will restore your body's metabolism as well. Okay. The other reason people gain weight is that they might not know they have an underlying health condition. A lot of people go untreated for insulin resistance, thyroid, PCOS, stuff like that, that they may have had for a long time, like during the course of their disordered eating, or it may have developed at some latter point. And those are all conditions of like chronic dysregulation. So it's not like there's a person in recovery who maybe has a history of binging. Um, some people have diabetes, some people don't, but that doesn't mean that the binging necessarily causes diabetes. That was already in the background, and it can exacerbate, binging, of course, will exacerbate underlying insulin resistance of any kind. And so the thing is, you really can't fix those conditions with weight loss, and you really can't change the weight with restrictive behaviors and improve your health as well. So I know it's a really hard situation for people to understand. It's because, wait, like I'm trying to do intuitive eating here, and it seems like my weight's going up more than I would expect, and I don't understand this. And that would be a good situation to get lab work done. To be perfectly honest, check your thyroid, check what's going on um, from a metabolic perspective, because there could be stuff going on that you didn't know about. That when you start recovery, possibly could accelerate some weight gain that doesn't necessarily have to do much with your food. So this is all really, really important. And I know that's hard to grieve and make peace with, that so much of how we ended up here wasn't by a free will, like full consent choice. A lot of us who've had backgrounds with a lot of neglect and a lot of care missing, all the way up to like really intense, abuse and trauma, the body does get into a chronic, threat response. And so it's hard metabolically for things to work correctly long term in that kind of state. And I know it's not fair and it's not your fault. And all we can do is take the best care of the bodies that we have the best we can, because we know that, there's always a cost benefit or a risk, a risk analysis you have to do with like, think like, I'm doing recovery, but I've gained more weight than I am okay with, and my body doesn't feel great. It's like, well, does your body need different or more health behaviors, or is this just going to take some time to heal, some of the trauma and the beliefs back there in the background? And again, still take care of the body the best you can. You might lose weight, you might not, but your quality of life can significantly improve even in a larger body. So I guess this is the the grown-up reality version of weight gain is that it's going to happen in recovery for most people. It's good, it's appropriate. Sometimes it's more than we expect for all kinds of reasons. Slower metabolism, which can be healed with regular eating and um, essentially like treating your body with respect. What does it need to operate at the best it can? And then if you have underlying health conditions, I know that's another thing you were dealt and it doesn't seem fair. And I think it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to grieve. It doesn't happen to everybody that way. So those of you who are honestly really blessed, like me, I'm very blessed to have recovered. And on the other side of it, wasn't a chronic health condition because of all the trauma and stress. I do have middle-aged women issues that, um, probably my history of restricting and overexercising and binging, all the things haven't helped out. But I do the best I can with the symptoms I have, and I educate myself and learn and really trying to take it all too seriously as well because um, our value isn't based on how healthy we are, um, what way we get to in recovery, how fit we are. We want to, there's nothing wrong with pursuing health. There's nothing wrong with movement. There's nothing wrong with enjoying food and experimenting with food to like have a really fun mix of like pleasure and nutrient value. That's all great, not a problem. But it's not who you are. You're not a failure if recovery resulted in weight gain. It's just some factors to look at. So we look at it, and I make a commitment with all my clients. It's like, look, I know most of the time people are expecting me to only mention something if I'm if you're overeating or undereating. But the reality is, if there's a trend or a baseline or a home away from home of like um, eating in a way that like an uncomfortable amount of fullness on a constant basis is kind of like a baseline. It's like a faux kind of safety. I talk about that just as much. Like, so basically emotional overeating. I talk about that openly, honestly with people. It's just a symptom. It's just a strategy to deal with the too much or not enough that's happening in our souls. Maybe that we're picking up from the world, wherever we're getting it from. And it's a big renewal of the mind to like, oh, recovery isn't about where I end up weight wise. It's about my eating competence. It's about peace. It's about where my heart lies, what I values, it's very clear scripture, like, what what's our actions show where our heart lies, where our values are, what our loyalty is to. And um, we want our hearts to point to him and who he is and all he's done for us and and the healing he can give us um, as we're trying to join with him. And I know it's hard. It's a big mental reframe to like you've gained weight in recovery, not to think that you did something wrong or that something is going wrong. That's likely not the case. It's just new. This is new to be able to think like this is really uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. I hope some of these nuances have cleared up, fear, worry, confusion for you, shame, put some of that to bed. You don't have to feel shame of gaining weight in recovery. We take care of the bodies that we have as we're going along the best we can. All right. Again, so I hope this helps you. I hope it brings some um, edification. I hope it produces fruit in your life. If it does, I would love to hear about it. And you're welcome to share any kind of other questions you have about these kind of topics. But remember, you should not be hearing from an eating disorder practitioner or medical health professional of any kind that the indicator of your recovery is your weight. Now, again, if you're not at the weight you need to be and weight gain needs to happen, it needs to happen. Okay. There isn't necessarily a specific number that's like you've arrived. It's more about, you know, where is your affect better? Where is your mind better? Where, where are consistent health behaviors landing you? Where is how you think and how you act um, aligned with truth? So thank you so much for watching and or listening. And God willing, I'll see you in the next audio and podcast. Bye for now.